Hello everyone, welcome to TOI Auto, and what you see behind me is the Ultraviolette F77. Now this motorcycle has been in the works for quite some time, and of course because of the weight there are a lot of questions that we have, and of course you also would be having about this product, about the company. So who better to answer all these questions than the founders of the company themselves? So let us welcome to the show today both Neeraj and Narayanan. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and it's a pleasure to have you here. So these are the guys who started the company, and of course, what you see here right now in the background, this motorcycle that is now just about to be launched very soon. Well, this is the product that they've built. So let's take a deep dive into what this product is all about. So, of course, when you gave us the presentation, you took us through the presentation today. A lot of interesting facts about the battery, especially. Now, when you talk about the battery, what was the reason to go in for a fixed module and not, swappable batteries, which some companies are adopting these days?
So back in 2019, what we unveiled was modular batteries. The range, the max we could get to was about 150 kilometers, and I think through the evolution of our R&D and the consumer side of things as well, we started getting a lot of feedback on, guys, can you give us 200 kilometers? Can you get us close to 200 plus? And so once we had to relook at the battery architecture, we sort of factored all of that in, and I think today what you see the top end is like 300 kilometers, like 2 times of what we started out with, and very proud of that. 5 years of R&D on the batteries, 5 years on the bike. I think
Yeah, it's
both
all
coming
come together,
together.
and I think it was set by, we set the bar very high for ourselves, right? So there's only so much energy you can pack into modular batteries, and to make them also removable while, not optimizing all of the space on the vehicle, that was a sort of no-go for us. So it became a sort of decision about, can we maximize how much energy is there on this vehicle, how much energy capacity is there on this vehicle versus, let's still try to keep it modular. And basically it was a decision about range versus modularity.
And motorcyclists, right?
Yeah.
We want impulsive rides, we want weekend rides. How do we account for that in the F77? And that was the thought process.
And that's why the 307-kilometer IDC.
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us a bit more about the battery, in terms of kilowatt hours and,
Right.
of course, the power output, the torque?
Right.
What do riders get?
Sure. So in terms of what you're seeing here, the highest range variant of the F77 is going to have a 10.5 kilowatt hour
Of usable capacity.
usable capacity on the battery pack itself, right? And that's what we spoke about with the IDC range of 307.
Right. And in terms of power, torque?
Right.
So you've seen the specs from 2019.
Yes.
The weight has gone up considerably because the batteries have now, we're giving 2 times the capacity. So a lot of the engineering work that we took you through was in terms of weight optimization and further strengthening of components. So the power numbers, the figures, pickup, acceleration, top speed are more or less in the same range. Exact numbers come out on 24th November.
Okay. And of course, you also told us that when you were developing the motorcycle, the pandemic struck the world.
Right.
And then that got you rethinking, wherein you thought, okay, the second gen model, let's get the tech
Yes,
onto the
yes.
first gen model.
Yes.
But that moment when you were a young company, still not out with the first product,
Right.
did you have that heart sinking moment? Were you worried about your investment?
No, so we actually saw this evolving over a couple of months, right? So it wasn't that, suddenly we were aware in March 2020. We saw this happening from January. In November, we had done the unveiling, November 2019. A month later, December,
we were in the works of looking at places for our production facility.
we had sort of, decided we're going down this path. So, but January, we started to see the signs of the pandemic in different markets, right? And so in Feb, by the time we were in Feb, now decisions had to be made around, how are we going to operate if we are going into lockdowns, right? So all of this started to come together. So neither was it an easy decision, nor was it a, spur of the moment thing. It was all collectively coming together as to how do we deal with this situation and how can we make the best of this time, right? If we can't be producing motorcycles, what can we do in this time? And that's where, all of the things that we wanted came back onto, that these things were on the backlog, and we said, let's bring them back in and let's leapfrog this entire.
It was a bold moment for us. you couldn't at that point quantify whether it's the the best thing to do, but it was an intent in moving forward with the technology. And that baseline was established. I think two things I would attribute this to. One is our team, been like working super hard with the same amount of motivation, enthusiasm. Two is our investors, supporters, backers, all on board with our goal. And you see the results here.
And when you also spoke about, the power figures, the range 307, which is a very good claimed range. But what about the charging options? From a rider's perspective, the person would be thinking, okay, yeah, I mean, 307, it's good, but how do you charge it? So what about your plans in terms of network? And what about the usual charging, the home charging, how much time the motorcycle takes?
Right. So
let's take a zoomed out view of this, right? When it comes to charging, we're talking about how much energy can you give on board the vehicle itself as one, and two, what do you do from an external availability of energy point of view, and three, the network. So we are actively looking at all three aspects. What we've covered in a very robust way is 1 and 2 with 300 kilometers of range. Most of your daily city riding and the weekend rides are taken care of. Of course, if it's a longer trip, there is provision for that. Exact details on the chargers and the charge numbers will come out soon. There is of course the overnight charger, and there is a fast charger as well. And the fast charger, take it along with you, stop for a 45-minute break, input enough kilometers on the bike and continue your journey. Now, the third aspect is the network. And
I think here interoperability is a very key factor here, which means that whatever charger is supported, whether it's a DC or an AC charger, I think the idea here is that if the existing electrical points are there, right, for example a 5 amp socket or a 15 amp socket, can we work with those, right? Or if there's a DC charger available, are we going for a standardized thing versus a proprietary thing? So we've made those very conscious choices that we want to be interoperable with all of the networks out there, and that's how we've taken decisions in terms of the charging connector, right, and the chargers themselves.
And again, question to both of you. EVs are undoubtedly a hot topic today, and there's it's a burning question that a lot of EVs have caught fire in the recent past. So what have you done in terms of safety to ensure that this can go through anything, right from the heat, which is close to 50 degrees in Rajasthan in summer, to the the freezing points that we have across in the northern India. So what have you done to?
I think the first and most critical piece of this is the entire aluminum enclosure. It's a fully aluminum enclosure for the entire battery pack, and the idea here is that it is both a structural and thermal member as part of this. So the ability to draw away heat in terms of the thermal conductivity, in terms of the ability to dissipate it and minimize the difference between the ambient temperature and the cells inside. So that gives us that flexibility, and that's how we've accomplished it with aircraft grade aluminum going into the enclosure of the battery pack. Then there are lots of other refinements that come from within the battery pack itself in terms of how we are able to dissipate heat from within the cells to the modules, and from the modules to the enclosure that we see on the outside, right? So we've made considerable effort that, and this has been consistently done since I'd say 2016, 2017. All of the incidents that you talk of, actually, we sort of saw them happening because not enough, effort was
not
made.
enough R&D, not enough testing. That is another area where I think we spoke about it during the event. Tens of thousands of kilometers have been covered on multiple of our test vehicles.
And so safety comes in from all of those 5 parameters we spoke about, right? From a software point of view, from an electronic standpoint, from an electrical standpoint, a thermal, and then mechanical, which is the enclosure itself. And all of the stress bearing members, we have crush zones. So the cells are the last members within this battery pack to take any kind of impact. And we've engineered it to all work together seamlessly.
And from our analysis or reading of the situation over the last, say, 1 year, safety critical incidents, it's not necessarily the cells that are the issue, right? It's how they're put together, how the pack is manufactured. Is the same quality maintained from vehicle 1 to vehicle 1000? So I think a lot of that has to do with safety issues, and not just the cells coming from overseas themselves.
Right. So now that you have engineered this product in India, and you have said you have been working this since 2016, which is a good amount of time that you put into R&D and developing this product. Now, at the same time, there are a lot of electric vehicle startups that are coming almost at a weekly pace.
Right,
They're
yes.
mushrooming all over the country.
Right.
How do you see that? Because at the end of the day, you're still going out with a first product,
Right.
and there are so many companies, and people are just forming their opinion about
Right.
electric vehicles.
Right,
So, what do you
right.
think about this mushrooming of EV companies?
No, one thing is it's great that there is so much enthusiasm about electric vehicles. Our only advice or inputs here is, guys, just be responsible with the way you're engineering the products. Take enough time to test it out. It's not a market where you're going to, it's not a make or break situation on day one. It's a very nascent market right now. Let's take our time, get everything that we do, get it right, and confident enough to put it out at the right moment.
Right.
I think that's the only thing we have to say towards this. Great to see more companies getting involved in this. We would also love more R&D focused companies to come out of this. So whether it's students out of college or different people starting companies, design R&D is like of utmost importance.
And of course, when you say you have developed it all here, is it like except the cell, everything else is
Yes.
Absolutely.
completely developed
Absolutely.
in
Yes.
India? All the materials that you're
So
using?
you saw the message that we were trying to talk about: imagining in India, designing in India, and making in India. So you're spot on. The cells, of course, we work with multiple partners, but everything, the battery pack design, the battery pack architecture, battery pack manufacturing, the entire powertrain, everything coming together, the whole architecture. Then, of course, you have the layers of plastics coming onto this, and
All the electronics all coming together, the code that is going onto the microcontrollers, the microprocessors, the integration, the communication, the onboard vehicle communication systems, everything was designed, developed, engineered right here in India.
I mean that's the reason we are showcasing the bare bones vehicle.
Right.
I
So
mean,
typically companies don't do that, right? They don't showcase what's on the inside. But for us, this is sort of a proud moment because everything that has gone into every single part of this vehicle was designed and intentionally put there, and that's why, that's the obsession to detail that we have.
you look at this package, we've maximized every square inch available for.
Yes. So very tightly packed.
Yes.
So when this motorcycle goes on sale, which it will very shortly on 24th.
Yes.
So when it does that, what is the kind of speed that someone can expect from this motorcycle? And at
So-
that time, will this be the fastest electric made in India motorcycle?
Absolutely. no doubts there.
No doubt about that. So
Fastest, and I would also attribute most reliable along with fastest. One is, I mean, the thrill is a momentary thing, but you're living with this machine for a good 7 years, right?
at the very minimum,
And
We've been building for that, and I think in terms of the specification 0 to 60, 0 to 100, all of these numbers will be out there, but I think we had already claimed some of these numbers, so it's not going to come as too much of a surprise when we put out these numbers.
So
But
you
as
can just give us a reference to the older numbers because of the people.
older numbers were 0 to 60 less than 3 seconds, 0 to 100 in about less than 8 seconds. I think that was what we had spoken about back
yes,
then.
top speed of 147 is what we've spoken about, so it's all in the
So
same.
we can expect some sort of improvement on these numbers.
Yeah, you'll see that soon. Yeah.
Right. And with so much of effort gone into the battery, I think from 16,700 odd cells, you've gone to 21,000.
So that is the cell, form factor.
Right.
So 18 650s were the 18 dia and
Right.
65 height cells we were using. We could see the industry by 2027-ish is going to completely transition towards
These new
2170s. Tesla's gone to a different format, 4680 cells, right? So for us, it was the whole time when we relooked at how we want to redo the battery pack and the range and all of these things. Why not adapt to what is the future requirement, and which again led to supply chain issues, figuring all that out, and we are here today. So.
Yeah.
So with all of these changes done, so much of tech that you have pulled forward in time from the Gen 2 concept, should your consumers expect a significant increase in price as well, or does it change the segment altogether?
Right. I'd say it's hard to put a segment to it. It's a different form of technology altogether, right? Coming to the price point, we spoke about somewhere in the mid 3 lakhs or so. Like you rightly said, everything like raw materials, commodity prices, everything has gone up over the last 2 years.
And we have doubled the capacity of the battery pack, right? So there are certain changes that have happened from an engineering standpoint, But all of this will, come. We will be making the announcements on the price. So there is an expected increase that you can perceive.
But we are trying our best to be very competitive.
Yes,
And
yes.
like we said, it's still early days in the market, and it's a long way to go.
And there's really no competition to this, right?
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
so yeah, we'll be putting out those details. So.
Sure. And one last question, can you tell us about your plans for production right now, with how many units you start, and going forward, how many units you plan to produce, and when someone buys a motorcycle, which you can from 23rd, so when they book it, by when can they expect the deliveries? These
Right.
are my last set of questions.
They will take it one by one. First is the production capacity. What we have today, where we currently are at, is a capacity north of 100,000 vehicles per annum. But going back to our previous discussions around reliability and battery engineering and battery assembly itself, right? We want to make sure it's a very robust template that is in place. So first year we are like limiting everything to about 10 to 15,000 vehicles, and post that we sort of ramp up the production.
Yeah, and in terms of availability of vehicles and the commercial availability, I think we're going to be putting out a schedule, rollout schedule for different cities in India. And so while next week we start the pre-orders, and the next following month we start the ability to choose your variant, finalize it, and from there on.
So there's a lot more. So today we went deep into the tech.
Yes.
24th, there is a lot of surprises coming on what you could expect in the final utility points on the vehicle itself.
Brilliant. So I think that gives us a sense of what to expect from the F77, and like we were told in the closing stages of this interview, that there are a lot of surprises coming our way. So definitely a lot to watch out for, and the launch is on 24th. So do catch the action live on TOI Auto. And
Sure.
gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And
Thank
it was
you.
lovely talking to you.
Likewise.
And seeing this product
Likewise.
in flesh. Thank you all. Folks.